Hello. Hi, thank you. Okay, a few things, weird things. I'm going to put a timer on so my pocket buzzes when I get to 25 minutes. So I'll know that. Okay, hello. This is weird in a lot of sense. Weird that you're all sat in settees as if you're at home, and weird because I'm a drummer, so I'm generally at the back, not stood in front of a microphone. So it's weird on that perspective. So, I think I've already... Okay, it's also weird because my notes are on my laptop over there, so what I'm going to speak to you about is going to have to come out of it, dragged out of my head. Okay, so thanks first of all to Josh and Aaron for inviting us, for both me and Chris. So I'm going to talk a little bit from the perspective as an educator, try and sort of make clear some of the things that we have to deal with, our position on this, and just tell you our story in a way, okay? I'm not trying to give you any solutions. I'm not trying to tell you how it is for everybody, because it's different all around the country. And I'm not telling you that we're doing it exactly right. But and hopefully you guys, a lot of you as employers, you're going to be meeting our students and our graduates. So hopefully this will help you a little bit, okay? So that was the initial title of my talk. I then thought, should it be that? Because that's one of my dilemmas, one of my many dilemmas of teaching this stuff. I guess one of the things let's have a ground rule. I'm going to call this web design. Whether it's web development or whatever title you want to use, I'll try and stick to the term web design for a moment. That just means this stuff, okay, that you all do. Oh, God. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, just a little warning, I am a professional. I do this as a daily job, but one, I don't use one of these things. Two, because I'm a professional, that means I actually pulled this together last night, not months in advance. And it means that I never time my sessions. I've never actually sat down and rehearsed a session. I just do them, so that therefore I'm relying on my pocket to tell me when it's time to shut up, okay? Which slides? That's me. I work at Manchester Metropolitan University, the Poly, as it was, in Manchester. I've been, a very brief few things about me. I went there as a mature student when I was 32. I'm 55 now, and I've not left, which was good news for me, because I got a job out of it. The lucky thing was that I arrived there when the web started. So I ended up doing, my major project was the department's web pages, some of the first web pages in the uni. I then got a job looking after them and some other stuff. And then I got seconded into teaching because I was the only one who actually knew any HTML. And it's been pretty much like that ever since. So I've been very, very lucky, and that's why I've ended up doing this. So I've actually been teaching full-time since 2000 now, so that's getting further away actually. So I've been doing it for a while. Okay. Oh, I've got a point over there. We've done that bit. Okay, so this one, students. I first thought I'd talk to you about students and what they are about and how we have to deal with them and what they bring to us and all the rest of it. There was some nice stuff on my notes about that slide, but I forgot them, so I'll go on to the next one. Students we have to deal with, they come into us at all levels, much like when they come to you. Once they go into the workplace, you're going to have the whiz kids, and you're going to have the ones that you're going to have to guide and coach and coax through things. They're not necessarily going to be any less than the whiz kid, but they need that bit of more guidance. And we have that as well. We have guys that come into us at undergraduates at 18 who've actually been programming PHP, .NET, all sorts of stuff, JavaScript inside out, before they even reach us. So they essentially know more than we do as soon as they start. We also have at the other end the guys who've just picked up on that this is a nice idea to do web development. They're doing it as a degree, or they're not even doing it as a degree, but it's an option to do web development with me, and they want to give it a go. So they might be an enthusiastic beginner, they might be a non-enthusiastic beginner, they might be somebody who wants to actually get to this level, but they might be somebody who just wants to do it. I've had the phrase, I love that, but I don't want to do it again. So, we get all levels. The other scale I like to use to describe our students is this one here, where we get a range. I should explain where I'm coming from. My students aren't computing students. My department was a library school. It's an information department. We are based in humanities. I'm going to talk a bit more about where web design fits into universities later on. But that's where we're best. So my students are guys who have chose not to, for example, go to an art school to do design. They've chose not to go to computing to do programming. And quite often they fit in a whole range. And so we get guys who actually are really good with design. We also get guys who are really good with programming, as I've already described. In the middle, we've got the basics, HTML and CSS. And I tend to say what I say is our students fit in that range. Sometimes they veer over towards the designer, sometimes they veer over towards the programming. Of course, the best ones actually cover the lot of it. And you guys love those guys because they can do anything and everything that you ever wanted them to do. And we do turn out some of those guys, and they do really well. I've just met with one of them in San Francisco at Christmas. He's actually working for AKQA in London. He's been seconded over to San Francisco, and he's been working on Apple projects and all sorts of stuff. So, you know, we do have guys like that go out. Another one now working in for Beyond in New York as a UX. So we have guys who really, really smash it and get out there. But they have this range of skills and they have this leaning, and we try and help them and guide them towards careers that fit those skills. We also encourage them to go both ways. If they're a designer, we say, look, that's great, but you need to smash your JavaScript or whatever else to make you more sellable. There we go. Oh, sorry. I told you I'm not used to these things. That's another thing we have to deal with. You might think that because they're paying $9,000 a year now, that they're all going to be in that bracket. They're not. A lot of the students we teach day by day, if we see them, also fall into that bracket. Yeah, they might be paying $9,000, but they not necessarily have that enthusiasm like you guys, i.e., you're sat here, you're enthusiastic about your subject, you're about your topic, about your career and all the rest of it. Unfortunately, a lot of students don't fall into that. And sometimes they do, but sometimes it takes a while. It might take 2 or 3 years of their degree before they get to that stage where they think, yeah, I do love this stuff. I do want to really do this stuff. So they might elect to come in to do a BSc web development, but it might take 2 or 3 years before they get that same sort of enthusiasm that you've got and love this stuff and really, really want to do it. Okay, so we have to deal with that. We have to deal with that every day in the class. To the guy who'd rather have a look at his phone, to the guy who'd rather look at Facebook, to the guy, you know, or girl who'd rather do anything but what we want them to do in class. On the other side of it, we've got a lot of great guys like this who are really pushing themselves, taking every opportunity they can, go into everything, doing everything that they can get hold of, yeah? So, a little bit on curriculum, talking about what we teach and what we try to teach and what we'd like to teach and all the rest of it. One thing I've come back to, which I've said I would do, is where web design sits. Where does it sit within universities? If you go and look at the web design courses that are out there, and whatever they're called, whether they're called web development programming, web design and marketing or whatever else, they sit in a variety of places. Some of them sit in computing schools, so it's straightforward computing. Some sit in art schools, like Chris is going to talk about his course a little bit. That's sat in an art school. Like mine, roughly called a media school, so the same with us, and over at UCLan, where they teach it as part of a media area. And then even in business schools where they do digital marketing and things like that. So, I mean, I used to be able to say in MMU that web design was taught in the catering college, it was taught in the business school, it was taught in the art school, it was taught in computing, it was taught in humanities, it was taught in, I think, one of the history courses used to teach it. It was anywhere and everywhere. So where it sits is a strange one, because a lot of it depends on the history of the people within the courses and who teach it and where they come from and where their backgrounds are. and just where it's built up from. A lot of this stuff is built up from the ground and slowly evolved. I've had good conversations. Andy Budd is one that springs to mind. Andy was saying, why isn't all this stuff together? Why, for example, isn't it like architecture where you've got all these skills and everything together, where you've got the computing, where you've got the design and everything, it's all there in one department? Well, the simple answer is this stuff is new. It might not feel to a lot of you guys, but it is still new now. It's still not really an academic subject. So it is very early days. Our friend David Watson down at Greenwich University of Greenwich, whichever it is, they have started to bring everything together. And that's how they're approaching it. In my university, what we're doing, we have a digital innovation unit that sits in the middle, and that acts as the linchpin for stuff being taught in computing, digital stuff being taught in the art school, digital stuff in the business school, digital stuff in humanities, and it all revolves around that. The time when you're going to get, when actually you say, right, we're going to pull this stuff together, of course the problem is you're going to say, I need that out of computing, I need that out of the art school, I need that out of the business school, and that's when things get sticky because people start fighting for their own little bits. So that's some of the problems and some of where this perspective of where it sits in universities. The skills mix, that's the other big thing, is this isn't straightforward stuff. There's a lot of stuff, isn't there, out there. There's, whether it's going to be, your basic coding, whether it's going to be real back-end serious programming, whether it's going to be information management, or is it going to be digital marketing? What is the ideal web degree? Which one is it one that focuses on just, say, the core programming? Is it one then you just end up with programmers, or is it one that focuses on, say, the front end stuff, and then you've got a very limited skill set? Or is it one that actually covers the broad stuff, so they understand about the marketing that's behind this, they understand about content management, they understand about metadata and all those sort of things? So there's no easy answer. We've got our way of dealing with it, but Chris has got his way of dealing with it, David's got his way of dealing with it. But there is no straightforward answer of what is the perfect course, because if I go and ask one of you guys, you'll say, well, I'd like a guy with these skills and this knowledge, and then I'll go and ask somebody else, and they're going to say to me probably quite a different set of things. Okay, what else we got? Oh, God. Stop it. Just finished off the curriculum thing. One of the things about teaching this stuff as well, as you guys know, this stuff changes. Students like the right answer. They like us to give them the answer to something. So should I use ems, rems, or pixels? They want the right answer. Now, I might say, well, I think you should be using rems because that's the future and everything else. And then somebody goes and posts a blog post that says, no, ems are the devil. Don't ever use rems, always use ems. And then somebody else writes a book and says, no, pixels is the right thing. Everybody should go back to pixels. And then, Andy Clark tweets and says, no, we're scrapping them and we're all going back to points or something else. And so you guys know that. You know that's happening all the time. And that's hard for students. It's not so bad for you guys. It's hard for you guys because you're having to deal with all these changes in the workplace. But you've got years of experience. You've been through it, or you knew about frames, you know about tables and all that stuff, and you've gone through each of these iterations. But somebody who's only 18, 19, 20, who hasn't got that history, they're just looking for the right answers, the right way to do this stuff. And we can't teach this stuff like that. What we can do is say, look, there's your options. Those are the things. There's an article on REMS. There's an article on EMS. That one says that's better than the other. But read them both. What you've actually ultimately got to do is make your own decision with this stuff. You've got to find the framework that works for you. You've got to find the preprocessor that works for you. Whatever else, you've got to choose the programming language that works best for you. We cannot, because for a variety of reasons, with skills and all the other stuff and time and the rest of it, we cannot just sit there and say, you've got to do this, 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 and this. What we can do is give them the space and give them the guidance to a lot of this stuff, but we can't actually say, no, you've got to do everything in REMS or you've got to do everything in pixels or whatever else. Okay, so we've done some teaching. These guys are then got to find some jobs. It's not bad at the moment. Our department, our little web design course, has got one of the best employment records in the whole of the university. Our guys, if they're good, they get jobs. There's a lot of the agencies in Manchester we're really good friends with. I literally get directors of those agencies saying to me, who have you got who's good? I get emails all the way through the whole year saying we've got a job, we've got a placement, we've got this, we've got that. My biggest problem is I've not got enough students. I've not got enough students for all those jobs. And I don't know how it is for you guys, getting people into posts and that. But I know a lot of the companies in Manchester are struggling in a lot of areas regarding recruitment, because there's so much work out there and so much going on, and everything's expanding. It's tough. So that's good news for us, because our students are getting good jobs and they're getting out there. We've had 2 cases in this last year where the companies have liked the students so much they've created the jobs for them. They've actually created roles that weren't there in the company just to go get hold of those guys and keep them. One of the things the students do face is where do they go with this stuff? There's all these roles, there's all these titles. Quite often they look at jobs when there's a job spec up on the web or something. And one of the big problems with this industry is that job spec asks them to do everything under the sun. They not only have got to be good at HTML, CSS and JavaScript, but they need to know all the back-end skills. They need to know how to run a server. They need to know how to be a barista, and a whole bunch of skills. And it's very daunting. I mean, my simple answer to that is, well, they're only going to pay you 15 grand. They're not going to get all of that. So just get in there, and inevitably it works. But it is an issue. It's scary for them. It's really scary when they're always not sure what skills they've got, and where the level that you want, and so it's quite a daunting thing for them to do. We've just took a load of them to the NUX conference. And one of the lovely things that we came out of that was a lot of them came out going, oh, we knew more than we thought we did. We actually understood more than we thought we did. They realized that they'd actually built up a knowledge base they hadn't perhaps realized, an understanding of UX. So that was nice. But it is daunting. There's a whole wide range of options for them. And it's also, they start thinking about their careers. I've just had 2 conversations today. We're being recorded, so I mustn't use any names, but one of them is one of our megatechies. He's already working with a company. He has done all the way through his degree, and he's looking at his options. And basically, he's come to the conclusion that web stuff, I can do that. So actually, I don't particularly want to do that as a job. What else can I do? So one of the things I'm going to do is get him sat down with some friends of ours who are running one of the top apps companies in Manchester, and see if they'll talk with him and see if there's a further sort of development job that he could do as opposed to just building web pages. He uses his skills. Some of these other friends were talking to me as well today. They'd just been to a speed dating thing for tech, and they'd sat down with Barclays, and Barclays had schmoozed them about their graduate scheme, and then they suddenly started seeing other options. And that is one issue for you guys another issue for you guys in the industry is, although my students go through 3 years as a BSc web development, when they get to the end of it, quite often they actually say, well, this is nice stuff, but I don't want to spend my life doing it. So what are the other options? And then they realize, oh, there's a graduate scheme with XYZ company and it's starting on 25 grand. Goodbye. So it is a problem. It is a problem. And the same with the computing students. I'm not in computing, but I often talk to them because a lot of my contacts in industry are saying, where are your programmers? And I go to computing, where are your programmers? And it's because they all want to go and work for Google. They all want to go and work on software development. They don't necessarily want to go into the web industry. So again, another problem. It's all doom and despondency, isn't it? Sorry. I thought I'd have a few jokes in here, but no. This just to go on the skill set stuff. I have a couple of lovely little things. This is by Jake Smith, you probably know of. He did a great talk at Manchester Fred over in Manchester just before Christmas, and he went through how his agency works. And one of the things he just drew a chart of all the sort of current buzzwords and skills that are out there. And he looked through and he actually said, well, he's lucky if he knows half of those. So, the idea that you expect a student to know every one of those. I've got a couple of students that will know most of those, but most of them are going to be delving and dipping into some of those things, but they're not going to know all of them, not yet, not starting straight off. So it is tough. And then, of course, those things change, don't they? That list is going to be different next December. It's going to be different again. There are going to be things in there that we haven't heard of. Some of those have gone because you've all stopped using it, or you tried it and you all said it was rubbish. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one for you. I mean, that's something that came out in the discussion. It was a room full of front-end devs, and they were all sort of saying how tough it is for them to keep up with this stuff. So, I've just jumped over the slides, but that doesn't matter. The last bit I want to talk about, and I haven't got a clue where I'm at with the timing, but never mind. Doing all right. I just wanted to talk through our approach and let you know what we're doing over at MMU, and just give you a bit of a feel of how we're trying to address this stuff and deal with this stuff. The one thing I didn't mention when I talked about myself is my dev skills, for example, are about 1996. Okay, so I just about got out of doing table layouts. That's about it. And that's because I do this job, and my job mostly is answering emails and just running to lectures and delivering a lecture. To actually have time to actually learn some of this stuff is almost impossible in this job. And any academic will tell you that. It's almost impossible. So what we try and be, and I've stolen Chris's phrase, and he's going to talk about this, is the role of the navigator. He came up with this term when we've been talking about things, and it's a lovely term, is the best we can hope to offer is that we act as this navigator. We can know about these things, we can guide them. So the REMS-EMS thing, we can know about a lot of the latest articles and the latest books, we can know the discussions, all those things that the students will ignore, as in they'll just want to see like a little tutorial how to do something and that's it. They won't read around it, whatever. So all that thing around that, we can know about some of that stuff and guide them, say, look, you must read this, you've got to look at this, you've got to look at this opinion, you've got to try this way. But we're not actually going to sit there and code it for them or show them this clever code and that, because we can't do it. And I'm pretty certain most educators are in the same boat. We just don't have the space and time. So what do we try and do? Well, the one thing we've done from when we started teaching this in 1996, 97, we latched onto web standards. And both web standards, and the thing I've missed out there, well, it comes under best practices, is usability and accessibility. So you've all come across, you've all been to talks on web accessibility, but we've been hammering people over the head about web accessibility since 1996. And we've made that an important part of our teaching. So even when it's gone out of fashion, things like we've had all, in the late 90s, we had all the Flash stuff coming and all the rest of it and design taken over. We've always emphasized best practices, standards, stuff like validation and stuff like accessibility and usability. And we've used those as our guidelines, our judgment, because we're academics, we've got to make academic judgments on coursework. So we've got to have some lines that the students can't cross. We've got to have something while we judge them. So simple things like validate. Does your work validate? Okay, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't validate. Commercially, lots of stuff isn't going to validate. It doesn't matter. But you're a student, you're trying to do this stuff right, you're trying to get it right. So your work should validate. When an employer looks at your portfolio, if it doesn't validate, it's just that one little thing against you that, you've got a bit of code wrong, you've got this wrong or whatever else. So we use those best practices and standards as our way of measuring stuff. And we drum that stuff into them. Sometimes it takes forever. Simple things like, let's talk, page titles, how to write a good page title, how to write good metadata. We often spend 3 years battering them over the head. And by the third year, they probably will write a good page title. Not the end of the world or anything like that, not any big revelation, but they've got an understanding why it's important to have a good page title. So we act as navigators and trying to guide them to things. The other thing we do is we make use of you guys a lot. Oh, my phone. Hey. Stop. Okay. We try to make use of you guys. We have lots of good links with industry. We've got lots of good links with people like these. My big one this year, well, last year, we did a Q&A with Andy, with Jeffrey Zellman via Skype, and had a great session with him. And one of the lovely things that came out of that was somebody asked Jeffrey if he was going to rewrite his book, and he said, I couldn't do that. It's become much too complicated. Everything, that's why you have book apart, because you can just dissect all this stuff, one book about SaaS, one book about this, one book about that. To have a whole book written by somebody who understands everything, he said, he's got no chance. And one of the other nice things he said, advising the students, he said, look, again, going back to the best practices, he said, if you get the basics, if you learn about web standards, if you learn the best practices, then that sets you up. What you do beyond that is pushing yourself and developing skills in what areas you need to get the basics right. I was at the side jumping up and down and clapping sort of thing while he was saying that, but yeah. So these guys are brilliant. We've got, in fact, Andy Clark's coming in tomorrow morning. He's going to spend 3 hours with my students and give them a sort of master class. Andy Budd's coming in next week, going to do an hour or so with people. Brendan, we've had people like Brendan, Chris Mills. They're all friends of the department. They come in. They don't charge us anything. They just come in and give back. And I guess that comes back to Zellman. Zellman very much at the forefront of the idea of sharing on the web and sharing your experiences and all the rest of it. That list should be about 3 or 4 times longer than the companies that we work with. But not only do we have the names, we have lots of guys from these companies, from the BBC, the UX team, and things like that. We have guys from Code, another company called Sigma should be there. Their guys come in and they come and guest on UX, they come and guest and on all sorts of stuff. So what we're trying to deliver to the students is that stuff from the horse's mouth, from guys like you who've got that experience, who are doing it day on day, rather than me preaching from a book. They get it from people who are doing it day on day. And we support that. We fit the glue in between and everything else. We're not sat there having a fag at the back while it's all going on sort of thing. We are actually working, but we give the glue in between. But these guys really give substance to everything that we're doing. What they also quite often do is back up what we've taught. I.e., we sit there going, every time they mention something that we've taught, we give it like this, and we're happy because they've just verified. Sometimes we get the students going, oh yeah, that's dead interesting. We say, well, we taught you that two years ago sort of thing, but yeah, that's the way it goes. So that's brilliant. We have fantastic support. I'm really lucky because obviously in Manchester, we've got such a big catchment. We've got people coming. Hopefully Harry Roberts is going to come over and do class with them. We've got guys like John Duckett, who did the HTML and the JavaScript book. He's going to come and do a master class with them this term. So a whole bunch of stuff you probably pay for to come. The other thing we do is use our students. I'll just wrap up quickly, but we use them as advisors. So we set up a new third year unit, which has got all these speakers in. And one of the things we first did, we went straight to some of our graduates working at the BBC and things like that, and saying, you're a UXer now. What do you do every day? You've been one of our students. What could we improve? So we try and get a lot of feedback and from them once they're in industry of what's going on, and that works really well as well. Good, and they come back to us. In fact, we just had one email yesterday from one of our graduates saying our place needs somebody to work on something. Can somebody do this? And we've advertised that to students straight away, so it works really well. I'll jump into this. I was just going to touch. Oh God. Right, I was going to touch on some of our students, i.e. the output. You might have just seen that slide fly past. But the output, the things, the people we've heard. Liz is one of our graduates. You might have heard of Ladies at UX. That's taken off all around the world, basically. So Lizzie is one of our graduates. She's a UXer. She's working at the BBC now. And she's been dynamic and really getting out there and pushed herself. The other one is Abid, who's Crafted Pixels. He's the one who's now doing stuff with Apple and all the rest of it. We've got a ream of them. We're building up a nice portfolio of graduates. My ambition in the Northwest is obviously try and get one in every agency. I don't know if anybody, I can't remember the area. One of my students at the moment is actually working with an agency in Leeds. I can't remember the name of them, so apologies for that. But so yeah, we're sort of building that up. We're getting people out there, and the more we get them out there, then the more we can get back from that, which is really good. The future, I think Chris is going to talk on this more, so I'm going to try and wrap up very quickly with this. But where does this stuff go? How things are changing? It's changing a lot. Universities are changing a hell of a lot. You won't believe the things that happen in universities. They are changing drastically. Not always for the good. But one of the big questions, is this a degree? Is this stuff a degree? It's a question I get asked on open days. Do I need a degree to become a web developer? My answer is no. I then go on to tell them why it's good to have a degree, but I'm honest. I'd say you don't need to have a degree to get into this industry. So is that the future? Do we need more degrees? Do we need better degrees in web development? Or do we need no degrees? One thing we're launching tomorrow at MMU is a new government thing, is apprenticeship degrees, where you actually do an apprenticeship and actually get a degree at the same time. So something like that might be a game changer. It might change the way. But that means you guys are going to have to find space in your agencies to take these guys on for it to work. So there's, watch that space on this one, because that's one that's taken off big time. The government like it. The next government might not, so it might change, but we'll see. And that's, yeah, I'm going to wrap up. I'm really sorry, I thought there'd be a lot more laughs in that talk, but there wasn't. It was a bit doom and gloom. A few plugs before I finish. Me and Chris are involved with a thing called Web Teaching Day. It's going to be down in Greenwich with David this year, but it's a bunch of us who teach web. We get together. We've done it twice now. The surprising thing for you might be there's only about 8 of us. People who teach the stuff who are in, for example, in computing departments, not interested. So there's literally a little group of us. Some of the names that you, Adam Proctor down at where is it, down at Winchester. So there's a small group of us get together and just talk about this stuff and how we can help each other. So you're welcome to get involved with that, so watch out for stuff about that. That's happening next week, so if anybody wants to come across to do that, give me a shout and we'll get you signed up and you can come to that, it's free. And that's it, I've finished, thank goodness, I think that's about time. Thanks guys.